Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. Welcome to the beginning of a new series, which I'm currently calling Anticipation Hesitation, but that's a working title, so let me know if you have any ideas down below for names for this series. Obviously, you're gonna need a bit more information about what the series is about before you come up with a name. So Anticipation Hesitation is essentially a series that I'm creating as a way to smash through more of my TBR and potentially books that aren't fitting into other videos that I'm already creating. Here in front of me, I've got 6 books that I am eagerly anticipating and 6 books that I am definitely hesitating towards. Now, the coloring of this wrapping paper means nothing despite the fact that there are 6 books in each color. I simply just ran out of Christmas wrapping paper, so I had to split this up. But anyway, as for the 12 books that are in this pile, let's go through the anticipation list, which is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, True Crime Story by Joseph Knox, Reputation by Lex Croucher, The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton, and All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. As for my hesitation pile, it starts with These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, featured on many a TBR, and The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Those are the 12 books that are in the pile in front of me. Let's pick our first book from the white pile. I'm thinking something small, so this one, maybe? This one's calling out to me. So let's grab her out. This is going to be book number 1 for this weekend. So let's open this up, see what we get. Apologies for the very loud wrapping paper. Oh, okay. So we're starting off with a book on the hesitation list, which is going to be The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. If this book is particularly familiar to you, that might be because it was recently brought out as a movie on Amazon starring Lucy Hale and Austin Stowell. As for what this book is about, it follows Lucy and Joshua, who work for rival publishing agencies that were merged to create one big agency and definitely have very, very different styles of operating. Lucy and Joshua are the PAs to the 2 leads of this publishing agency, and they have a bit of a rivalry, nemesis sort of relationship where they're constantly playing games such as the staring game and the copying game in order to get on each other's nerves until the ultimate game comes to pass when a huge promotion is up for grabs and both Lucy and Joshua desperately want it. I'll just read you the last section of this blurb. It says, finally, she's going to destroy the man she can't seem to get out of her office, the man she hates, the man who's taking up far too much space in her head. If Lucy wins, she'll be Joshua's boss. If she loses, she'll resign. The race is on, but the real games have only just begun. So this is definitely sold as an enemies to lover romance. I guess I'm kind of keen to read it. The only reason why I wasn't looking forward to reading this particular one is because I didn't love the movie, and also because I tried a chapter of it in a sort of romance edition of the try a chapter tag, and I didn't really like the first chapter. I think this scored pretty low out of the 5 books that I read for that video. So ever since then, I've been really hesitating to pick it up. But I guess the fates have spoken and now I have to read it. So I'm gonna get stuck into this book and I will let you know my thoughts in a little bit. Hello. Welcome to the first update of this vlog, I guess. It was gonna be like a summary video where I could read tons and tons in a row, but it's kind of turned into a vlog because I feel like talking about my feelings. Anyway, I am about 50% into this and here book. Don't know what just happened there. I went full on like old American Texas. Anyway, I'm 50% into this book and I'm genuinely struggling with my thoughts on it. I'm like 50% of me loves this and is really enjoying the tension and the angst and the hate to love, or very much hate at the moment, and just the fact that these 2 people are so clearly pining after each other but then refusing to admit any feelings for each other to each other. But then 50% of me really doesn't like this because there are a lot of moments in this book where, for example, Joshua basically lifts up little Lucy, puts her against a railing in the lift that they're in together, stops the lift and starts kissing her, and I'm kind of like, 1, that came out of absolutely nowhere. 2, she had just been telling you how much she hates you and your reaction to that is to kiss her. Like, she fully would have been entitled to report you, call the cops, slap you silly, like all these sorts of things. Like, what would prompt someone to do that with someone who has never shown any kind of affection towards them other than like some facial expressions that he calls like her horny eyes or something like that? Why would that be okay? And this just happens so many times over and over again where he makes a move on Lucy that kind of just makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, because I'm like, she has made no moves on you or towards you that would prompt this sort of reaction to her, I guess. As for what's going on in this book at the moment, it's definitely really capitalized on a trope that I know a lot lot of people do like, which is the sort of you get sick, he takes care of you kind of trope. I personally thought way too much time was spent on it and in way too much gory detail, and that is just a personal preference for me. If you like that trope, go for it, you'll love this book. But for me, hearing about other people throwing up just makes me feel ill, so I don't really want to read it. I also really don't like how very like aggressively possessive Josh is of Lucy, and how actively aggressive he is towards other people who show any kind of interest in her. I also think there are just a lot of really problematic dudes in here who don't know how to hear the word no. The sort of friendly, nice guy other side to Lucy's love life is definitely someone who doesn't seem to want to take no for an answer, even when it's very clear Lucy has just been like deathly ill and does not want to go out on a date. He's like, no, I've already booked a table, so I'll see you at 7. She's like, what? I think Lucy is fun. I think she's quirky and interesting. I think being inside of her head is really interesting. The way she sort of analyzes each situation, the way she views this relationship between her and Josh is very different to, I think, how he views it. The writing is fine. It's definitely bringing out emotion and tension and that sort of gut feeling in my stomach that I get when I read romances sometimes. You know, they have a fight or they disagree over something, or the guy says something that offends the girl, or vice versa. So I'm liking that the writing is sort of evoking that feeling in me like a lot of romances do. It's a speedy read. Like, I've only been reading for a couple hours and I'm halfway through. So I'm gonna get back into reading this book. I'm gonna try and smash this out tonight so I can get this video basically filmed and finished by the end of the weekend, but we shall see. That may be a very ambitious target. I'm gonna get back to reading and drinking my beer, and yeah, I'll chat to you in a bit. Hey, I clearly could not be effed with my makeup today, so we are doing a no makeup reading update of The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Guesses below, based on my previous update, what I gave this book in terms of rating. Let me know. Take 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do you think I gave it? 1 star is the answer. I did not like this book, like really did not like this book. I don't know why I am shaking it so much. It's just, I guess, how passionate I am about the fact that I did not like this book. But let's go through my thoughts in more succinct, precise, sort of all-encompassing detail that makes more sense than just me blurting to you over and over again that I didn't like the book. Firstly, let's talk about the characters of Lucy and Joshua. So Lucy is our main female character, the sort of romantic lead, the character who this entire book is written in the point of view of. So Lucy didn't mind her, thought she was quirky, thought she was fun, just didn't really think she was all that interesting as a sort of main character to follow. She had this fun, quirky, like, obsession, I guess, with Smurfs, which was really cute, but it wasn't enough to really overshadow the fact that Joshua Templeman is a crazy douchebag who has so many red flags that I cannot believe Lucy did not notice when she was just having her experiences with him for the years that she'd known him. He was jealous, he was over-possessive, he didn't allow her to have any other friends that were male, he was incredibly forceful about making her live her life the way he believed that she should live it. Plus, I think his level of obsession with her since literally the day they met, I think he says like he became obsessed with this one color since the second day from knowing her, or he started noting down in his calendar whether she was wearing a dress or a skirt, or whether she made him want to kiss her from literally the second day that they were in each other's company. That is creepy. That is a red flag. That is just no. Moving on from those two though, because he really makes my blood boil. We've got the secondary characters who don't really exist in this story. They're not really there for anything other than to rant and rave and make jokes about the fact that Lucy and Joshua seem to have this chemistry that neither of them wants to admit to. As for the atmosphere and frankly the plot and my intrigue as well, basically. And yes, I'm using CorePal to do my rating. I think this book was really exciting, intriguing, atmospheric, tension-filled, paced well in terms of plot for like the first 30 to 40% of the book. But then when you started to go round and round and round in circles with these two characters, the last 40 to 50% of this book was just that loop over and over and over again, and it was honestly infuriating because it made me so bored of the story. I think the writing was great in that first 30 to 40%. I was really hooked on this relationship, and it had me feeling all the tension feelings whenever they would argue, but as it just repeated itself over and over again, it became really cyclical. I completely lost interest. There were also some really awkward declarations made in terms of dialogue, so I think if more time had been spent really fleshing out these characters as individual people and making me like them, then those declarations would have felt a bit more exciting and swoony and everything, but instead they just felt awkward and uncomfortable and kind of something you'd say when you're in high school and you're experiencing your first love and they mean literally the entire world to you. As for logic, I just want to read you what I wrote because I'm happy with it, and it says, I really don't get these characters at all. I hate the whole if he pulls your hair it means he's in love with you message. It is a horrible thing to say to people. It's a horrible message to send, and in my mind it makes no logical sense. So yeah, after about 30 to 40% of this book I did not enjoy it anymore, and that's why it got 1 star for me, because reading this became a slog, and for me that is a classic definition of what will turn into a 1 star. That's the first book. Let's do a second one to hopefully get a better result. We are gonna pick from the gold pile this time. I think every time I do this video I might do like 1 from the white pile, 1 from the gold pile, just because there's 6 in each pile. I want to do a small book, so I'm looking at this one and I'm looking at this one and this one, and so for ease let's just go with the one on top. So we've picked the book. It feels like it's gonna be short, but let's try and open this and actually get an idea of what this book is going to be. So we have got, ooh, I am actually keen for this one. I can't remember if it's my anticipation or hesitation pile, but I'm kind of keen for this, and that is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Okay, so this was actually in my hesitation pile, but I think the only reason for that is because I've had it for a really, really long time, and I'm kind of scared that I won't like this after 1, how much I am obsessed with that cover, and 2, the fact that I've had it for forever, and it always happens that when I have something forever, I never end up enjoying it. As for what this is about, I don't really know all that much, so I'm just gonna read you the blurb, and it says, a forgotten history, a secret network of women, a legacy of poison and revenge. Welcome to the Lost Apothecary. Hidden in the depths of the 18th century London, a secret apothecary shop caters to an unusual kind of clientele. Women across the city whisper of a mysterious figure named Nella, who sells well-disguised potions to use against the oppressive men in their lives. But the apothecary's fate is jeopardized when her newest patron, a precocious 12-year-old, makes a fatal mistake, sparking a string of consequences that echo through the centuries. Meanwhile, in present-day London, aspiring historian Carolyn Parswell spends her 10th wedding anniversary alone, running from her own demons. When she stumbles upon a clue to the unsolved apothecary murders that haunted London 200 years ago, her life collides with the apothecary's in a stunning twist of fate, and not everyone will survive. With crackling suspense, unforgettable characters, and searing insight, The Lost Apothecary is a subversive and intoxicating debut novel of secrets, vengeance, and the remarkable ways women can save each other despite the barriers of time. That kind of sounds fun. I like the idea of multi-POV. I like that it's all about women saving women, women helping women. This is the next book. I'm gonna be getting straight into this and hopefully smashing it out this evening, but let's be honest, it is 5:17 p.m, so it's gonna have to be a speedy read for me to finish this evening. So I don't know, let's get started, hope for the best, and I will give you my thoughts later on tonight. Morning! We've got a much nicer look going on today. I decided to actually get ready this morning because it is Monday morning, just before I'm about to start work, and I have an update on The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and that is to say that I did not finish it last night, which was fully predicted. I only got about halfway through, but I am really actually enjoying this so far, more than I expected to, I think, going into the book, because it did start quite slow. First thing to say about this book is that it's not only written in the 2 POVs of the women on the blurb, the woman in the current timeline, Caroline, and then the woman in the previous timeline, Nella, but it's also written in the perspective of a young girl, a 12-year-old girl, who's also mentioned, I think, on the blurb, called Eliza, who begins to work with Nella and who definitely is part of Nella's whole life getting thrown upside down. So Eliza and Nella meet because Eliza has been recruited by her mistress to essentially off her mistress's husband, and Nella obviously helps her with this, but she's very surprised by Eliza and her age because she's only 12 years old. So they strike up this kind of bond, I guess, in that neither of them can really forget about each other. After Eliza's mistress goes away to, I think, live with family after the death of her husband, and she goes into mourning, Eliza is kind of left with nothing to do, nowhere to stay, so she moves in with Nella, decides to start helping Nella, and ultimately becomes part of this sort of blackmail plotline going on in Nella's life. Nella gets forced into this situation that she really doesn't want to have any part in, because the whole principle of her shop is to help women, but the situation that she's found herself in is essentially risking the lives of every single woman she's ever helped in order to save one person or one woman, or vice versa. So there's heaps going on in that timeline. And then as for the second timeline, you've got Caroline, who, going into the story, she's just recently split up with her husband. It's not really clear why until later in the book, and I'm going to keep that under wraps, but she's just recently split up with her husband. At the very least, they're separated, and they had planned just before this split to go on this 10-day or so trip to London together, this itinerary of love and all that sort of thing. And so she decides to go on this trip by herself and do something called mudlarking, which is essentially going to the borders of the Thames, down on the sort of ground riverbed level, and sifting around, looking through, seeing if you can find any sort of lost treasure, I guess, from Victorian times. And she ends up finding this little glass vial that looks like an old apothecary vial, and it's got a bear sort of etched onto the vial, and it looks sort of very hand-drawn. And naturally this sends her down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out where this vial came from, more about this apothecary. She finds out it's linked to murders, and she's just absolutely hooked. So the two women at the point that I'm up to in the story are very much connected in terms of history and knowledge of, at least on Caroline's part, the existence of this other woman. But I'm really excited to see how that kind of unravels and how potentially she finds out exactly who Nella was, or the identity of the person who owned this shop, maybe goes into the shop itself and is able to find sort of lost remnants from the 1700s, which is when the shop was open. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this book. I'm loving the sort of historical aspect to it. It does feel very real in terms of the relationships that it mentions between Eliza and her mistress, and then Eliza and her family. I think Nella is a really interesting woman to follow as well, because she was raised in the situation where her mum told her, or taught her, that protecting other women and being there for other women was the most important thing that she could do. She definitely ingrained that sort of feminist nature into her daughter, but then Nella has taken that and run with it in a completely different direction. And I like that sort of what connects Caroline and Nella is this idea of a betrayal from a very important man in their life that has led them onto this path where they're eventually connected. But anyway, I'm loving the writing of this. I think it's really beautiful, really effortless. It's definitely a slower story in terms of pace, but I'm still finding that, you know, when I get to the moment where I consider and I stop and I take a second, I go, am I enjoying this, or am I just kind of like pushing myself through because I want to meet a page goal by the evening? And I do sit there and go, no, I'm actually enjoying this. Like, I want to turn the page. I want to get that to the next big reveal. I want to get to the next thing. I'm loving how this sort of murder mystery is linking in with this historical fiction. I'm going to keep reading and I'll let you know my thoughts once I've finished, because I've only got about half of the book left. So yeah, I'm going to get to work and I'll chat to you guys once I finish the book, probably at the end of the day. Hey, I'm back for the final update, which is to say that I have finished The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and am slightly surprised by that, considering it was on my hesitation list, but I think I did say at the very beginning it was only on there because this is a TBR vet for me and I was really scared to actually pick it up. But as for my review, I mean, the characters in this story I think are what really sings for this book. And I say that because I think despite having this sort of murder mystery plot and definitely being very intriguing in that regard, and you know, the historical setting and everything really bringing the atmosphere to the forefront, I think it was generally a character-led story because it focused so intensely on actually existing inside of the characters' heads. There was less of a focus on dialogue, so it was a lot of internal monologuing, which is something that I usually wouldn't enjoy. So I was surprised by how much I actually didn't mind the amount of time I spent in these characters' heads. I can usually find that like really whiny or really preachy, or the internal monologuing, but in this one it was executed really well, and I think that's really testament to the writing and how beautiful and effortless it felt. I think the characters themselves were so fascinating in the way that their lives were interwoven despite being separated by like 3 centuries or something of history, and I liked that their lives and what was happening in their lives was sort of seamlessly interwoven with each other. By when Nella was facing heartbreak in her life, for example, then Caroline would be facing a similar sort of thing, and when Nella was under threat from the police, then so was Caroline. I just love the way that was the 2 plot lines were even sort of seamlessly interwoven into each other, and I thought it was really beautiful. But then I also really loved the character of Eliza and the innocence and the loss of innocence and the sort of childlike immaturity that she represented, especially because these two women, a really big focal part of their stories was the fact that they either weren't able to or weren't planning to have children. So having that very childlike, very immature, very naive character really lent this innocence to the whole story that I thought was beautiful, as well as being representative, I think, of the innocence that these two characters had lost because of everything that they'd experienced in their lives in terms of heartbreak. I loved how each character grew and changed. So Nella went from this unfeeling, very stubborn character who wasn't willing to let anybody in to this sort of mother-like figure, I guess, for Eliza, and then how Caroline went from someone who was kind of willing to let other people lead her wherever they wanted her to go and had lost this sense of herself and independence and everything. And so by going on even like a couple of days, I think, in London, she found this independence that she kind of felt like she'd given up. And I was amazed as well that the whole of this story happened within like a couple of days for Caroline. I think it was a little bit longer for Nella. But yeah, all of this, there was just so much going on, but it was only within a couple of days. The modern London setting definitely felt very identifiable in the fact that I'm very familiar with the area in which this was set. It is actually where I work. But I think the sort of historical timeline was where the atmosphere of the story really sung. It was definitely very vibey, very dark, very eerie, this sense of mystery around it because you didn't really know anything about what had happened between these women other than the fact that there was a murder mystery tied to them and you didn't really know how that would evolve. The twist at the end was definitely very, very unexpected. I think there was like a twist and then a sort of follow-up twist that happened after that. It really challenges what you assume happened after a very major event happened in the story, and then it kind of goes off on this completely new train and has this moment of like full circle clarity and this moment of everything coming together and a sort of happy ending in the end, in that every character kind of got what they wanted. All in all, really enjoyed this book, super glad that I read it, and yeah, that is kind of the end of this vlog, I guess. Though now looking at the piles, I'm debating picking up another book. No, resist the urge. I need to put these books down. This vlog needs to go up soon, so I need to stop now. So let me know down below if you've read either of these books, loved them, hated them, what your thoughts are on them, if you have any. And if not, if you haven't read these books, just let me know what you're reading at the moment in the comments down below. Loving it, hating it, all that sort of thing. I love talking to you guys and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It is a super, super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!